Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to sort of go a little bit off the sort of the beltway and talk about family heirlooms, things that can be sentimental or have monetary value, but things that are handed down from generation to generation. And now there was a time, certainly as a kid, I remember, people would you go to someone's sort of house and they would give you a little tour if you're there for the first time, and they would point out, oh, that was my great grandfather's, or this was my grandfather's, or this was been in the family since a million years ago, and so on. So that they would, and these were, say photographs. One of the, I remember one person had a photograph of one of their relatives. I think it was one of the earlier photographs ever taken. I think it was in the 1840s, something like that. And they were very proud of this. And someone else had a set of crockery that had somehow managed to survive from the 1700s, and someone else had a I think it was a pewter dish that had been used by one of their relatives hundreds of years ago, and these were treasured possessions. And there'd be mixture of photographs, and there's also other things like say jewellery or brooches and necklaces, pendants, those sorts of things. Not necessarily of great value, some of them, but they were important, or considered as important by the family members. Probably not much outside of the family. People would maybe say, "Oh, yeah, well, so what?" But it was the descendants and relatives of these people, and they considered it important and treasured those possessions. They were in pride of place on a mantelpiece or on a wall or in a hallway, something like that. Also furniture. Some people have pointed out that their ancestors were French, and they've got some Louis XIV piece of furniture that they've had since the 1700s. So now, something I noticed a little while ago, just sort of going around. There was some people who've one of their relatives has died recently, and she owned a house in the neighbourhood, and it's an older place, and she would have been mid to late 80s when she died. So the children who were sort of in their early 60s, I guess, looking at them, there's a couple of them have come along. Now, they're only one generation away. This was their mother and so on, but they've come in and they just want to take everything of value, sell the place, and they're cleaning it, and they're throwing out, and I noticed they've thrown out in the trash the sepia photographs of their grandparents and great-grandparents, or maybe even older than that, and things that would have been very important to the family in other times, and other aren't important anymore. They don't care about it, and again, they're just throwing it out in the trash. So I appreciate these photographs. I have an old photograph of someone you never met from 100 or 150 or whatever it was years ago. I do understand that, but there was a time when these family mementos and heirlooms would have been treasured insofar as they were from the family of days gone by, your relatives, your blood relatives, and thus they would be important today to that family. But these people clearly don't think that way, and they're throwing it out along with other things that don't have value. There's also recently a garage sale again from a woman. I think she was 90 and died, and has got a place, and they were having a garage sale, and they were just throwing the stuff out, and they didn't, things that were clearly important to the I don't know whose mother it was, but they're clearly important to the lady who died. Were they didn't even bother sort of trying to put it up for sale or anything. They're just straight in the trash. And so I've noticed that there's this change, and I think that's sad, because things that your relatives value. Could be your folks or your mum, your dad, or an auntie or something. It doesn't matter, but things that they valued and were important to them, whether it be sentimental or not, then shouldn't you show those things some respect, or are they just getting in the way? Are they just gathering dust? Why? I mean, your kids don't care about it, so why should you? Is there anyone else you can hand it down to? So there's no sort of mechanism anymore to hand things on to the next generation of things that were important to you. And as far as I can tell, and I'm sure there are exceptions, there must be, as far as I can tell, that at least in the modern world and the Western world, given the fractured nature of families and so on, and high divorce rates and consumer society, all that sort of thing, then maybe this is a quaint thing of the past. And is there any point in hanging on to things, even if they're not of value or they are of value? In my own case, I've got a ring that belonged to my great grandparents, and it's got their inscription in there of the day they were married and everything. And I know I can't imagine it's worth a lot, but I kind of don't want to sell it. That belonged to them, and so I get a few $100 for it. Well, so what? But then I think, well, does anybody, are my kids even interested in that? They're probably not. They'd probably sell it in the drop of a hat. So there isn't any. That's one small example, of course, but there isn't any way to pass that on. If it isn't real estate property or cash money, does the next generation in the West at least really give a shit? Maybe not. I'll be interested to see your thoughts below. But it kind of struck me that there was a time when these things were very important, and now it seems they're not anymore. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.